Okay, today we're diving into one of the most fascinating frontiers in the world of food innovation. It's the evolving space where plant based, fermentation based, and even cultivated ingredients meet traditional meat products. From hybrid meats that blend the familiar with the new to clean label challenges and the heated debate over the ultra processed foods, there's a lot to discuss. To help us make sense of it all, I'm joined by Katharina Burdorf from Hydrosol and Pia Meinlschmidt from Planteneers. Both are deep in the trenches of R&D and product development, working on solutions that could shape what's on our plates in the very near future. Pia, Katharina, welcome to Protein Production Technology International.
Hi.
Great to have you with us. Now, to kick us off, I'd love each of you to briefly introduce yourselves and share a bit about your current roles at Hydrosol and Planteneers. How do your teams typically collaborate, if at all? Shall we start with you, Katharina?
Yes, sure. I'm Katharina Burdorf. I'm with Hydrosol since about 9 years already. Started in R&D and then I went to product management in different roles with a focus on dairy, fine food, and meat applications. In the past, we've also worked on plant-based foods in Hydrosol, but then in 2020, we built off the Planteneers as a spin-off. And but both companies do stabilizing and texturing systems and for various applications. And in the past, about 5 years, I've been also focusing on cultivated meat beside my role here in product management. I've been doing my PhD with a focus on consumer acceptance of cultured meat and industry perceptions. And within the company, I'm like the first contact for all the startups out there in the field of cellular agriculture and so precision fermentation, cultured meat. That we're working together.
And we're going to be talking about that a bit later on. Pia.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for having me here today, Nick. So my name is Pia, as you already know. I've been leading the product management team at Planteneers for the past 3 years. Basically, my background is in food biotech and process engineering, and I've already spent the last 12 years working within the alternative protein space. So everything from plant-based ingredients. Also did my PhD focusing on technofunctional properties and allergenicity of plant-based proteins. To fermentation-derived solutions like mycelium, mycoprotein, and also precision fermentation, what we are also going to talk about today. And at Planteneers, what Katharina already mentioned, we basically develop and supply functional ingredients for plant-based solutions in the space of meat, fish, and dairy alternatives in the B2B space, not on the B2C. And mainly at product management, we mainly define the strategic direction. So always keep an eye on emerging trends, novel ingredients, and evolving consumer needs to ensure that our solutions stay ahead of the curve, I would say.
Well, let's talk about one of those trends. It's hybrid meats. Katharina, there's so much buzz around bridging tradition with innovation in this space. Could you help paint a picture for our readers and listeners? What exactly do we mean when we talk about hybrid meat products today?
True. I think we currently actually see a kind of peak when talking about hybrids, or in some cases it's also called blended meat or remixed meat. So actually we're talking about a mixture of real meat with plant-based components. These plant-based components can be classic vegetables, this can be legumes, this can be texturates, or mushrooms, nuts, or whatever. So classical mixtures or more new approaches, you can say, to with varying contents of meat and the plant-based component.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen Lidl and Aldi just recently launching their own versions of those products. Katharina, are there any particular types of meat products where hybrid formulations are proving especially successful? Sausages, burgers, deli meats, for instance.
Yeah, well, there are some products which are in the market since a couple of years, like in Austria, targeting children or parents who provide for the children in the end. So like organic meat with veggies, and there, for instance, like the chicken nuggets. But when we look onto consumer data, for instance, there we see, for instance, burgers, so based on beef and burger patties. So this is like the most interesting combination for consumers, at least if you ask them. There's been a study conducted in Spain, UK, and in Denmark, and this is what they found out. So it seems like this more premium type of meat, like beef, is more of interest. And what I found actually especially interesting is also the amount of meat that has to be in there. So about 50 to 75% of meat was like the most preferred ratio. And the other parts, so 25 to 50 in the vegetables or soy and so on, the combination.
And from a technical standpoint, what are some of the biggest challenges in making sure that the plant components blend seamlessly with meat, both in texture and taste?
Yeah, well, actually, I think they don't always have to blend in seamlessly. So it's for instance, when we're talking about veggies, it's nice if you see them because it's nothing to hide. It's an argument. It's an extra argument. It's an upgrade, you can say. So, but if we're talking about some ingredients like texturates, so a pea texturate, for instance, then of course it's more. It requires a new processing step, right? If you're talking about a dry texturate, then you need to hydrate it and so on. So, from a technological point of view, there is might be some extra steps, but it's nothing that is too challenging to achieve, and in the end, a great product.
The idea of combining cultivated cells with plant-based ingredients, that's a bit further ahead, and it might seem like science fiction to some, but it's becoming a reality with quite a few recent announcements. There's a big one coming today. How do you see this next generation of hybrids evolving at cultivated and plant-based? What do you think are the biggest hurdles, Katharina?
Yeah. Well, I think it's evolving rapidly. I mean, we see news on this topic like almost every day, I would say. At least someone who's following this is seeing this. It's the major approach of the startups out there, going with a hybrid product onto the market and not with a fully cultivated product. The reason is simple, due to cost, for instance. So, where it's the main reason in the end. So, and this is one of the biggest challenges, I think. It's still about scaling because things like bioreactors are very expensive. So if you're really planning to invest in this yourself and not using something like contract manufacturing, then it's a huge amount of money that you need to invest in the end. So this is a critical step because in the end, a hybrid product of cultivated cells needs to reach at least price parity, but from a consumer study perspective, it should be actually cheaper in the end.
And from a functional standpoint, do cultivated cells bring unique advantages, or are they facing similar issues as plant proteins when it comes to texture or taste integration?
Well, from a functional perspective, we can differentiate between cultivated fat biomass and cultivated biomass based on muscle fibers. So the cultivated fat biomass, they can replace, for instance, vegetable oils or fats with it, like coconut and palm oil, and use this fat instead, which also brings a quite meaty flavor, making it juicier. And so taste and texture are changing in the end, or improving, I would say. And with the biomass based on the muscle fibers, it also has a quite high water content, so a great amount of water. But the cells, the proteins inside, they have some functionality. So they bring some binding properties and everything. So it's also, to some extent a functional ingredient, but of course you would still require something like stabilizing and texturing system to work with it properly.
And presumably you think cost parity for these kinds of hybrids is achievable sooner than for pure cultivated meat products?
Yes, for sure. I mean, this makes sense, right? And why should you actually use like 100% cultivated biomass, if ever possible, if you can already achieve a great result with about 20% cultivated cells, or in some cases already about 5% cultivated cells, and the rest of plant-based ingredients. So is there the necessity to go on to, I don't know, 80% or more? I don't think so, personally.
Pia, we'll come on to you now. When you're working on plant-based matrices, do you already have cultivated cells in mind as future partners? Are there ways that you're future-proofing your formulations to be compatible with cultivated inputs down the line?
Yes, we absolutely do. So even though cultivated ingredients are commercially available yet and have a high price, as Katharina already mentioned, we are already designing our functional systems so that they can work with them well in future. And this actually means we have a close look on cultivated cells how they might interact with our functional systems. This means in terms of pH value, moisture behavior, water binding, fat binding capacities within the plant-based solutions, texture development, and also processing needs. There might be some adjustments on our typical plant-based solutions and processing conditions as well. And as you already mentioned, so our goal is to be ready when the times come and we have commercially available cultivated ingredients, inputs, and everything is about future proofing at this point. This is most important for us right now, and to be ready, of course, for our customers and the solutions.
Are they actually asking the customers? Are they asking about this yet, or is it still more of an R&D conversation at this stage?
Yeah, so at this point, it's mostly a topic within the R&D and I would say innovation teams, but the interest is growing, to be honest. So some of our partners already ask questions like, will this base or functional system work with cultivated fat, for instance, in the future, having hybrid or blended solutions, or can you adapt this functional system, this plant-based matrix, once cultivated cells are available? So it's mainly focused on the R&D side right now, but some questions just arose in the past. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm interested, are there particular functional or sensory properties that you think cultivated cells could solve for plant-based formulations?
Yeah, absolutely. So cultivated cells are especially what I mentioned before, cultivated fats could play a key role, in my opinion, in elevating the overall sensory experience of plant-based products. So they offer a unique benefits in terms of authentic mouthfeel, juiciness, which is really important in plant-based meat alternatives, for instance, and also flavor release. So this is quite challenging right now to replicate at this moment using just plant-based or vegetable oils. So this could be a huge benefit in the future. And from a formulation point of view, cultivated ingredients could also help us to maybe simplify ingredient lists or also enhance the nutritional value profiles in a way that it feels more natural, cleaner to the consumers. So this is also really, really interesting for us to see.
Mhm. Let's talk about the consumers for a moment. Katharina, from your side, how receptive do you feel consumers are to hybrid products right now? Is there a confusion even about what hybrid means?
Yeah, I think what we need to clarify first is what kind of hybrid are we now talking about? Is it like the future hybrids where we only see the consumer studies as we don't have market-ready products except of like in Singapore. So there is no real market right now. We're talking about the, say, classical hybrids that are in the market and that have already been tried over also a decade ago. And they failed in the past. So they were not really successful, except of these organic products in Austria for children that I've mentioned. But I think now we see a kind of momentum. So the retail is also pushing this hard, you can say, also in the Netherlands, for instance. But what we need to think of is how do we communicate, because consumer could not think of something which is called hybrid in food, because we know hybrid from cars, from technical things. So in food, this is like, oh no, we don't want to eat something like that. So it's about the communication of like it's blended meat, so where it's meat with pure veggies or whatever. It's about all of this kind of things to have it more natural, but be transparent in the end. So there, it's a good moment, you can say.
Yeah, I was just wondering if is there a generational difference that you're seeing in openness to these products?
From a study side, so like a scientific point of view, there has not been a real focus on hybrid meat products and looking onto generational differences. But if we think of the reasons for hybrid products from a sustainability point of view, from a health point of view, and so on, it's interesting for different target groups. But I assume at least that the most receptive to this will be the younger generations, as there mostly are, like in between of 18 to 30 years. These are also the ones who are most receptive to cultivated products, for instance. So if we think about future hybrids, so therefore you can expect that you can especially target younger people. But if you choose the right wording, the right ingredients, the right way to communicate, this will also be of interest for older generations.
And on the topic of communication, what do you think is the most effective way to communicate the benefits of hybrids or blends without overwhelming people with science or technical jargon?
Yeah, well, meat is something emotional for many people. So if you cut off the meat, many will say like, "Oh no, we don't do this," or we don't like this. So therefore, it's quite critical, a critical balancing act, you must say, and that you trigger this emotional part in a positive way, a kind of better for you product, not feeling and not providing a feeling of sacrifice or something, but as I've mentioned before, it's an upgrade. It's an upgraded product, so it tastes good. It tastes like meat, but you have some extra fibers. You have some less fat, and so on. So you can just eat without feeling guilty, you can say. And I think this is something you need to target more.
And Pia, from the Planteneers side, are you seeing similar trends? How do you talk about hybrid products so that they're not perceived as some sort of weird in-between solution?
Yeah, so that's a really important point. We see the same trend as Katharina already mentioned from the Hydrosol part. So I also think for consumers, the framing, the narrative is very, very important and is almost everything. So when we position hybrids as we always call it at Hydrosol and Planteneers, the best of both worlds. So great taste, familiar formats, and a lower environmental impact. They tend to be well received or more received. And in my opinion, it's not just about forcing change, but offering better choices at all. And a second point, which is also really important, I would love to add, is we also avoid overly scientific language. So instead, we focus on what matters to people: taste, nutrition, sustainability, and of course, really important in times of price parity, the thing price. And what Katharina also already mentioned, the fact that they don't need to give up what they love. So the taste, sensory improved properties, and then, of course, the second part, the health part, and also the sustainability and environmental impact part as well.
Of those claims, such as sustainability or health that you mentioned, are there any that resonate most with consumers?
I think both. So I think sustainability is just a major driver, but from particular for the younger audience. So sustainability is really important for this audience generation. And I think health is just a strong motivator for all generations, especially if we can demonstrate improved fat profiles with lower cholesterol or added dietary fibers, what Katharina already mentioned, without compromising in anything and taste as well, right?
Hmm. Do you think there's a potential for hybrid products to reduce the backlash that we sometimes see around ultra-processed perceptions in plant-based foods?
Potentially, yes. So if we formulate or develop hybrids smartly, I think we can reduce ingredients and having a more cleaner, leaner version of everything. So meat and plant proteins often complement each other's functional properties, so we can avoid certain binders or stabilizing systems. So that makes it easier to deliver what I mentioned before, leaner or even cleaner labels. And this is for me the most important fact here, we can shift the conversation from processed, black and white, process is bad, to purposeful products. And this is really important to shift the entire conversation on that.
Well, let's move on from hybrids and blends. Let's talk about mycoproteins and mycelium. They're definitely hot topics these days. Pia, what makes fermentation-based proteins like these so exciting for your work at Planteneers?
Yeah, so it's really exciting for us, absolutely. So fermentation-derived ingredients like mycoprotein, or we call it mycelium, is for us like a game changer right now. So the natural texture is much closer to meat than traditional plant proteins. We commonly use TVPs to have this meaty-like texture, and we don't need it, or we have a reduced TVP content in our solution. So mycelium is naturally fibrous, structured, and also behaves well in or during processing. And nutritional wise, mycoprotein is a complete protein. So it's a high quality protein having all essential amino acids, is naturally high in dietary fibers, beta glucans, which is really important, and is also highly digestible. So we have a PDK acid of almost 1, which is really perfect for our body. And that's really important. And a last thing, which is also really important when talking about fermentation-derived ingredients like mycelium, it has a much lower environmental impact. So we need to use less land, less water. And in our opinion, mycoprotein mycelium ticks all the boxes and opens doors for new next generation upgraded plant-based innovation. So I'm not talking about plant-based 1.0, but 2.0. So that's the next generation when it comes to texture and also taste.
Mm-hmm. Is there a specific advantage that mycoproteins or mycelium brings for texture that's difficult to replicate with other plant proteins?
Yeah. So what I already mentioned, so definitely it's fibrous network. It's really meaty-like texture. I mean, it's really like it perfectly mimics the muscle fibers, which gives products this really natural and chewy bite, which is really nice and which is really hard to mimic with typical TVPs based on soy or pea. So we already have the structure, which is natural grown, and we already have it. And that's really, really hard to mimic commonly.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see mycelium fitting into the dairy alternative space, if at all?
So it's a really exciting frontier, I would say. So mycelium can enhance the creaminess and mouthfeel, for instance, in dairy applications. Especially in cheese alternatives, like having sliced cheese, pizza cheese, having different melting behaviors. So it also have, I would say, flavor modulating properties. So helping to cover or reduce off notes coming from plant proteins like legume, bitter off taste. So you can have like a really clean sensory profile when using a mycoprotein in those kind of applications.
Mhm. Katharina, do mycoproteins or mycelium ingredients feature in any of your hybrid developments of Hydrosol?
I mean, after all the benefits that you've heard of from Pia, yes, we've been doing some trials in this field, of course, as well. And we're here in Germany. We've made some first trials in our German Bratwurst, and we're quite amazed by the results.
Mhm. Are they easy to integrate into meat systems, or do they bring their own set of challenges?
Well, it's as Pia has mentioned, the texture is similar, but it's not meat, right? So it brings some dryness with it. So you need to adjust the recipe regarding the moisture or the fat, for instance, depending on the recipe. And what we observed is that it's kind of absorbing the flavor. So you would need to use more flavor or a bit more meat. So depending on what you like in the end, to cover this, to have this real meaty taste that people love.
Mhm. Pia, let's talk about the ever elusive clean label. Consumers increasingly want short, recognizable ingredient lists, but removing things like methyl cellulose is no small feat. So, how are you navigating that challenge?
So it's definitely one of the toughest challenges within the plant-based developments market. So MC, as you mentioned, it does a lot. So it's really a nice ingredient. It binds, it gels, it holds moisture and gives really the perfect meaty-like bite in hot conditions. And it's really hard to mimic, replicate, or even just skip MC in any recipe. So it's really replacing it means finding multifunction systems or other natural resources, other proteins, fermentation derived components could be one option, or novel emulsifiers to bridge that gap. So clean label is really, really important, and there is work in progress. And we at Planteneers, we already have developed recipes without MC. So that's really a really important point here. Yeah.
Mhm. Are there other ingredients that have proven hard to replace so far?
Yeah, so it's mainly MC, to be honest. So it remains the gold standard for structure and stability in many plant-based formats when hot stability and bite is needed. So we are steadily making progress with alternative soap systems like burger and sausage applications, but still MC is to be honest the toughest one. Yeah.
Do you find that customers are willing to accept some compromise or on texture or shelf life if it means a cleaner label?
Well, some are, especially in premium or organic segments where clean label is a top priority. But spoken broadly, I would say consumers expect a great eating experience. Everything is about what they love and they need an experience. And that's why we aim for solutions that balance both. So having a clean or lean appeal and satisfying texture and overall sensory experience.
And Katharina, how does the clean label trend impact hybrid formulations at Hydrosol? Does working with meat complicate clean label ambitions, or can hybrids actually help simplify labels in some ways?
Well, our overall goal is to provide the ideal taste with ideal texture, you can say. But of course, we're working on clean label solutions as well and are offering them actually to our customers already in this field of classical hybrid meat products because it fits, right? It fits to the concept because it's healthier, more sustainable. And if you're using then an ingredient list with 10 E numbers, it's simply not a great concept in the end. So therefore, we're working on this, and I would say working with meat makes it actually easier than working on a purely plant-based product, for instance, because meat is already giving a lot of structure, flavor, and everything itself. So working on hybrid meat products is is beneficial, especially if you have a greater meat content in the products.
Mhm. One of the big narratives we keep hearing is around ultra processed foods. Pia, how do you think the industry can better explain the nuance between processing levels and overall food quality, especially in plant-based innovation?
Yeah, so in my opinion, we really need to change the narrative. So not all processing is bad. So it's not black or white. I think it depends on the intent. So many processing steps, for instance, safety, nutrition point of view, we need to improve it with processing. So fermentation, for instance, protein extraction and isolation, or even freezing. These are really important processing steps. And for me, what mostly matters is transparency. So what's in the product and why, and not seeing black or white and processing is bad. So that's not true at all.
Mhm. Are there any particular misconceptions that you'd like to clear up for consumers when it comes to the idea of processing?
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest misconception in our view is that processed is equal to artificial or even unhealthy. So again, black or white, which is not true in that. So processing can also making food safe, more nutritious, or more accessible to the body. So we need more education on what processing actually mean, and that's why we have also published a white paper on that to give an overall overview. What is meant by ultra processed foods? What are the different classification systems behind that? And how should we change all the narratives around processing and nutritional values as well, right?
Mhm. So you probably feel that the term ultra processed is unfairly used as a sort of catch-all negative label.
Yeah, absolutely. It's becoming like a buzzword,
Yeah.
without real meaning, to be honest. So, and this could be really misleading for the consumers as well. So that's why, yeah, we have created this educational white paper to have a broader audience and also to get more familiar and educated on these things as well.
Mhm. And Katharina, could hybrid products actually help shift that conversation, that narrative, by offering more balanced nutrition while keeping ingredient lists manageable?
Yes, if we keep the ingredients list manageable and bring out more clean label products or cleaner label products, for sure. But we see that it's possible, and it's a good way to go. And I think it's also a good way or a good starting point for many consumers, reducing their meat intake without sacrifice, going maybe also one step closer to be more open, trying maybe purely plant-based products in the future as well. So diversify the plate. So I think hybrid products can be really a kind of a bridge between two worlds.
Mhm. Now, we've just got a few more questions. Hydrosol and Planteneers, they're both under the Stern Vival Group umbrella. Now, how do your two companies work together in practice? Are there shared projects where your teams collaborate on solutions?
Yeah, well, you must imagine we're here actually at the same place in our Stern Technology Center in northern Germany, close to Hamburg, um, with various sister companies from our food ingredients division. So we're working, in the same offices, in the same buildings, and on the same equipment. And when we're talking about the lab, so this is a very, very close cooperation. If there is a question coming up, I can always go next door, ask Pia, for instance, about mycoproteins.
Mhm.
Pia can do the other way around, and the same is our R&D doing with our colleagues, for instance, from the Flavor House or from vitamin and mineral premix experts. Everything is in-house, which makes collaboration very easy and efficient.
Mhm. Pia, are there any synergies that give you an edge, especially in rapidly responding to market trends?
Yeah, definitely. So what Katharina already mentioned, by combining our resources, we can move fast. So from ideation to prototyping. We can respond to the market really, really fast, and combining all of our expertise and know-how in one thing. So this is really, really, really good for us as well, and we can be really fast in that way. Yeah.
Some companies are quite secretive, but is there a particular project that you've worked on together recently that you're particularly excited about?
Katharina, I would say I would say the hybrid solution. So Hydrosol is bringing their expertise in meat processing and emulsions, and Planteneers is bringing their experience and expertise from the plant-based and mycoprotein side. So I think this would be a good project we can talk about. So bringing all our hybrid solutions might be also a joint development from both sides.
And Katharina, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, it's actually one of the most interesting things we've worked here in the past. Of course, we're also working on future hybrids, but obviously we're not really allowed to talk about this kind of things for our cooperation with startups in the field of cellular agriculture. But I can say they benefit from the know-how of Hydrosol from the meat side or dairy side, and from the Planteneers side from the plant-based alternatives. So it's like cooperating with two companies, but having like one person to talk to in the first place. So
Okay, so before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from each of you what the single biggest thing you're excited about for the next 12 months in your respective areas. Katharina, would you like to go first?
yes, I mean, I'm the most excited about trying new ingredients that are coming up. So always when we get a contact, especially in the field of cellular agriculture, and we get to try this kind of products here or with our cooperation partner, that's just exciting to see what is possible already through means of biotechnology, and how our future food is going to look like. And it's exciting to be involved in this in a very early stage.
And Pia?
So to be honest, I'm really excited about how fermentation based proteins like mycelium are evolving. I mean, they are already scaled. So it's not really interesting, not just for meat alternatives, but also for clean label functionality, flavor masking, what we mentioned before, and even new textures, and also for the dairy side as well. So in my opinion, there's so much potential. We have products which are scaled and for the mass market. And I think we are just scratching the surface right now. And I believe a whole new generation of outstanding macroprotein based products is just around the corner. So the next 12 months will be really, really interesting for us. What's happening there then?
That's a great way to end it. Look, Pia, Katharina, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure we'll catch up in the future to hear about some of those developments that you weren't able to talk about. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.